Welcome to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. Conversation is a skill, part 2. Welcome back to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. My name is Kale Houser. I appreciate you joining me today. I am CEO of Kale Houser Leadership, along with my amazing wife, Liz Houser. Our goal is to help small business owners and leaders just like you. Maybe you found yourself in this position of leadership inadvertently or maybe purposefully, but then you kind of got there and you realized, holy smokes, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this job. I don't know how to connect with people. I don't know how to create culture, and things are kind of going a little haywire. Well, that's what Kale Houser Leadership is here to do. If you have not had a chance yet, please do yourself a favor. Help me help you. Check out our VIP Leadership Mastermind by going to VIPLeadershipMastermind.com, and you can join our weekly mastermind where you can get access to amazing leaders, amazing speakers, and amazing information so that you can be successful, because there's really only 2 things you need to be successful. Do you know what they are? The right information and the proper guidance. That's what we do here at Kale Houser Leadership to make and help you be the leader you always wish you could be and that you always wish you had. Be that today. All right, we are continuing our conversation of communication, and conversation is a skill. So in our previous episode, part 1, we talked about active listening, we talked about open-ended questions, and we talked about social cues. Now, these are all things that we use to encourage conversation. The assumption being made here, if you missed the previous episode, is that you're in some sort of situation. This could be a networking event. This could be a trade show, a conference, but this could also be you in your break room of your corporation and you're talking with a new employee. This could, or a different department head. Like any way you have conversations with your spouse, with your kids, with your parents, uncles, friends, like whatever. Like these are things you need to start incorporating as part of who you are, part of how you talk, part of how you listen, and part of how you communicate with people in order to be an amazing conversationalist. So like I said, the first part that we talked about, active listening, making sure you're paying attention, asking open-ended questions, not just the standard, hey, where are you from? How was your night last night? How are you today? Right? Those are not open-ended questions. Those typically provide 1 or 2 word responses and rarely lead to further conversation. And then social cues, like how are people reacting to what you're saying? Are they bored? Are they excited? Do they want to learn more? Are they leaning in? Like what is it that they're giving you in the form of social cues to either indicate how this is going? All right, so as we continue, there's 3 more that we want to talk about today in this second part of this series. And that is, this goes along the sense of being prepared. If you know you're going into a situation where you are going to be having probably many conversations or many different, even mini conversations of introduction and figuring out like who are the players in this room that you need to know, maybe potential business partners, potential customers in the future, like you need to be prepared for this. And part of being prepared for that is having a variety of topics to talk about. And this does 2 things. 1, it keeps you from feeling like you're a broken record. It keeps you from feeling like, holy smokes, this is the 5th time I've told this story just today or in the last hour, right? It keeps you from feeling fake by just being that one that tells the same story, the same pitch over and over and over and over. But it also, as conversations inevitably, hopefully, extend beyond just the, why are you here? Are you enjoying this conference? Where are you from? Like the basics, which we talked about in the previous episode. You need to have more than just those in your arsenal of questions, but it allows you to express knowledge and interest in a variety of topics. Now, I would highly encourage you to, of course, relate it to what you've got going on. But when somebody says, oh, I'm from, Colorado, like, oh man, I used to live close to Colorado and we loved going on vacation there. Like, is there a favorite spot you love in Colorado? Like, what do you like about Colorado? How do you, somehow that you show interest and you show knowledge about these different topics. Now, we use that a lot for us because we've traveled a lot, because we visited to a lot of the states in the country. So it provides a connection that we can show interest in people that we're having conversations with. But this could easily be something else that, if you're at a trade show, this could be about how you do business or the new technology coming out, how you're using it. There's all kinds of topics that you can put in your arsenal to include your story, to include funny stories that, people can relate of, like, oh, that reminds me this one time that, such and such happened. And oh, yeah, that was so funny because of this and this and this. Not just for the sake of like telling a funny story, but it should have a point. It should have a start, a middle, and an end to your story, not just, and then same thing, being able to transition beyond that story to spur more conversation. Like, oh, have you ever had that happen to you? Like, some way to keep that conversation going. But it's having this variety of topics allows you to navigate different conversations with different people, how they are responding to you and what they are showing is of interest to them in talking about. Make sense? All right, so variety of topics. Now, so the second thing of today's part 2 is really the ability to adapt to the situation, right? The Marine Corps is famous for, what is it? Improvise, adapt, and overcome. Like that is their motto, that is their creed, is any situation that they hit, even if they're not prepared for it, they hadn't thought about it, they adapt, they improvise, they overcome. How willing and able are you to be adaptable? How willing and able are you to overcome the challenges of different conversations? Because you will meet people that are hard to talk to. They are not conversationalists. And assuming that you're wanting to continue the conversation and you're not just like, okay, well, it was nice to meet you, enjoy the rest of the conference and move on. Maybe this is in your workplace and you're trying to, create this culture where people actually talk to each other instead of just sit there in the corner eating their lunch and then go back to their desk and never talk to each other. But how are you adapting to those situations? Do you have different approaches to conversations? So if the direct questions aren't working, will the funny story work? If the funny story's not working, will the getting them involved and asking them to do something work? Like, how are you adapting your style and your approach in order to elicit the conversation and the response that you're wanting for or driving for? Now, certainly this changes based on your situation, right? Large networking events, conference, trade shows, seminars, that type of thing, versus in your office with your presumably smaller group of people that you know better and more often. But you need to be adaptable. You can't just have your go-to story all the time. I've talked about this too in the past, where I've had a previous boss that every time I've met him, I was told and reminded that he was a former fighter pilot. And then, spoiler alert, come to find out later, he wasn't actually a fighter pilot. He was a backseater to the fighter pilot. So yes, you flew in a fighter jet, but you are not a fighter pilot. So it's just kind of interesting. But that was the only story he ever had. That was the only story. That was his intro. That was his body of his story. And that was the conclusion of his story. Not a great conversationalist, because it was all about him. At no point did he ask questions. At no point did he show any interest in it being a mutually beneficial conversation. Because that's what conversation really should be. Mutually beneficial. We should each come away from this conversation going, oh, I really enjoyed that, or I learned something new, or now I have some information that I didn't have before that is beneficial to me. I didn't know you offered that service. That's amazing. I've been looking for somebody to fill that need for us. That's what conversation is, and it's an exchange of information. Sometimes just for fun, certainly. But a lot of times, especially in our business world, it should be an exchange of information for each other's benefit. Okay, the last thing, this should go without saying, but it does need to be said: respect and consideration. There are oftentimes, and this also applies to beyond just being respectful of people's different views, right? We all have different points of views. We all have different values, different priorities. And it doesn't mean you can't have a conversation with somebody that you disagree with. Even if it's about the thing you disagree with, it's okay to, ask questions like, well, help me understand, like, why is it you believe this? Why is it you do X instead of Y? X instead of Z, I guess, would be more appropriate. But having that and showing that respect and that consideration, even when you disagree, is what continues the conversation, is what keeps it from ending in, hurt feelings or ending in anger or being upset and never having a conversation again. Like, it's okay to disagree with people, but you need to be respectful. Now, another aspect of this is being aware of your audience. Maybe you've got strong feelings on some topic, and then you just start out spouting essentially kind of hate and putting down the other side of that topic that you have strong feelings of. Well, come to find out, part of your audience is on that other side. What have you done? Is that going to spur conversation, or have you shut down that person and caused them to dig in their heels to create a defensive situation because you went on the attack right off the bat? Right? So being aware of your audience in that sense of being respectful and considerate of, hey, I'm in a mixed group here. There's entirely possible that not everyone thinks like me. Not everyone has the same background as me. Not everyone has the same priorities or goals for their life as me. Politics, of course, religion, of course, society, of course, all the craziness that's happened in the last few years, of course. Like, these are all things that people have very strong feelings about. And if you enter a conversation, especially like in a group setting, with those strong feelings off the bat, it alienates people, and it does not encourage conversation. So like I said before, if you get these six things down as I'm holding up my four fingers, you will be better than 98.9% of everyone else at conversations, and people will start to naturally gravitate towards you, especially as they see you repeatedly. Maybe you're doing your monthly Chamber of Commerce meetings and networking. People will start to gravitate towards you because they feel valued, they feel respected, they feel benefited when they talk to you, and you should feel the same. Make sense? If there's something I'm missing, I know there are many layers to this. Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear them. I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear how implementing some of these has helped you, if it has. I know when I am purposeful about going into these types of events where I know I'm going to be having, many different conversations with strangers and even with people that I do know. Like, when I don't prepare in the sense of mentally prepare for that, I am nowhere near as effective of communicator and conversationalist than I am when I do prepare and understand the situation. So I would highly encourage you to do that same type of thing and process this through these different topics. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate you. Likes, comments, and subscribes and shares are fantastic. I hope you kind of get this message out, and we'll talk to you soon, no matter where you're at in the world. Have a fantastic afternoon. Bye.